Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, the slab gets a makeover. So we're in the second to last weekend in May, and most of the trees have finally started to push out. We've had a roller coaster of weather. We've had 90 this year. We've had humid weather. We've had hail. Every time I walk in my yard these last couple of days, I see this little dangling branch, and it's, I think, from the hail that came down, and I missed it the day after, or the day it hailed. So we've had hail, we've had wind, we've had rain, we've had heat, and then this weekend, yesterday, we didn't get out of the 50s. Now the sun just poked out here with the filming of this, and the wind's whipping a little bit, not too terrible, but we're supposed to hit 60 today. So it's a nice cool day to repot. And I thought about this all last year. I've got this slab from my brother in Upstate New York, and I drilled some holes into it. I don't know if I can show you that. Here, here, and there. And as you can see, the slab is monstrous, almost as monstrous as Milo. I think the biggest challenge was deciding what to put on the slab. I have some larches I was considering, I have some maple trees that I'm still considering, and I have a really tall, my blue arrow juniper. And my vision for the slab was going to be to have the blue arrow juniper that stands about this tall be kind of like an old growth forest tree. And then I was going to plant one of my smaller trees with smaller leaves. I was going to use one of my boxwoods and plant it over a downed pine tree. So I have a big dead tree right here and have the roots growing over the tree, as I saw in the redwoods when I was at the redwoods. It was a really cool image, and I still want to do that someday, but as I put a couple trees on here, it just wasn't seeming to be the right combination. I looked at all my trees in all of the garden, and I have a couple of aspens I could put on here. I have a maple I could put on here. I could put an aspen and a maple on here or two. And then I've got the birch trees. So I got my birch forest, and I thought, hey, let's take a look at the birch forest. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to treat this more like a slip pot. Being it's the end of May, and the leaves have all come out pretty good, they've not really securely hardened off yet. A lot of new growth popping up. There's still a lot of energy left in this tree, so I'm pushing the boundaries of repotting for sure. But as Peter T. once said, you could really repot almost any time of the year as long as the aftercare is good. So we'll get this on the slab. We'll treat it really, really well. We won't cut much roots, if any at all. We'll see how they spread out, and we'll get this forest on here. We might leave it just birch trees. I might put a couple of maples up in the front foreground here off to the side, and I might even put the tall poplar back over here. We'll move it around, mix it around, and we're going to see. But the first stage is I have to get some wire into those holes to tie this forest and these trees down. So let's do that first. There's our nice rounded pot. We got lots of roots growing up. This was repotted, I believe, 1 or 2 years ago. And let's see what we got. know if you can tell on the camera or not from that angle, but the two biggest trunks are starting to get that white color. This is a white paper birch clump. I got it as a clump. When I last tried to repot it, I looked at possibly separating the trees a little bit more for more of a wide forest, and I was having nothing, or it was having nothing to do with that. It controlled it. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to break away some of the soil. And this clump will stay as is, and we'll just position it on the tree, on the stump rather, as best as we can. Not the stump, I guess the rock, the slab. So the nice thing about the white paper birch is that it always shoots up suckers every year. So I could have this a forest of 9 to 11 trees at the end of this year. Right now it's 5 main trunks, but we got 2 new suckers growing up. That's all new this year. So now we're at a 7 tree forest, and we could be 9 by the end of the year. I already cut a couple of small ones off. So every year I let 1 or 2 grow. I'll take a peek at it. Some drainage screens here. There we go. So every time we repot with some species, we're getting more and more rid of the dirt that was in the original planting. And there's still some dirt in here from the original nursery pot a couple of years back. I've had this cluster for 3 to 4 years now, maybe 5. I'll have to go look back at my records. And so we're just trying to get some more of the dirt out here. And again, I'm going to maybe do more of a slip pot onto the slab this year than cutting a lot of roots off, unless there's some really clear indicators of roots that I think are just too big and not going to be needed. I could cut a couple of roots down here to make it continually a little bit more flat, but it looks really good right now. A lot of nice roots. We got some new root growth now since it is spring and it's pushing out new growth. So let's get a first look on the slab and see what more we want to take away. Let's take a peek with you. Yeah, how fun is that? Huh? Look at that. We have a little space on the left-hand side. We could put a couple of little maples here. Got a maple tree that's pretty small. Another maple tree back here, and another maple tree right here. I could have a cluster of 3 maple trees that could grow up with the birch tree. And we have all the white birch. We have the yellow leaves in the fall. We have the reddish leaves in the fall, and this could be really pretty. That would go 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. But when we get this many trees, it might not be as big of an issue. So that's fun. So we might include the maples in the forest planting today. The other tree I do have a poplar that's really tall, and it's just leafing out in the trunk of the tree, but the top has leafed out a little bit. It could be a nice tall one back here, and then the three maple trees in the front. You know, these are super thick compared to these thin pencil ones, but these could be the dominant trees, and maybe these maple seeds, like they do in my own backyard, they fly all over the place and then just grow sometimes. So maybe they grew later after this birch cluster was growing up here. So that's one front. This is probably the main front from before, so you don't see that chopped tree. So there's the other front. Yeah. And then even if I have to get rid of this branch right here for maples and stuff to fill in here, we've got this tree here, and here's the new growth. There's new growth back here for depth, and that's looking pretty good. Got a nice little lip in the back here that raises the back of the pot, so it sits in this crevice really, really nice. We'll have to get some muck. We'll put some muck on the outside of this forest planting, so we'll do that. Yeah, I think we'll just trim a little bit of the very bottom and get this thing on there. Okay, I think we have a decent planting there. We got the birch tree off a little bit to the right, the clump of birch trees, and we'll put in some little maple trees on the left-hand side there, and we'll see what we get. We need some soil, and we need to get some muck started. I have very small holes where the wires are going through, but we got some drainage screeds in there anyway, just to make sure that we don't get some pebbles stuck in there and block the drainage. That'll provide some good drainage. Got my mound of soil up there. Squash it on down in there. See what we have. Yeah, we can see all the trees from that angle. Let's protect those roots and wash it down just a little bit. So what I did here is place a little bit of inner tube right here so it doesn't damage those roots should this wire come off in the future. But I like this root up here and this root here, so I might not worry about the one down below anyway. But let's tighten that up. So now it's time to play in the mud. We got some akadama, fine particles, and dust. We got some pumice, fine particles, and dust. And we have sphagnum moss. We're going to keep the sphagnum moss pretty big this time because we want to interweave with the soil and hold the muck together. So we don't want little small pieces. And of course we're going to add water. So we have a nice mix of akadama, fine particles and dust, pumice, fine particles and dust, and the sphagnum moss. Now we can make the border around our forest. With the longer fibrous roots from the sphagnum moss, I'm able to tuck some of it underneath the soil and kind of almost make like we're making a pot for it. Yeah, so take them out of the pots and we'll see. Now we have some nice, lovely white fibrous roots, the new growth. We're not going to cut any of that off. This is like a slip pot again. And we're just going to put this right here in the soil. And I don't have any more tie downs, so we'll just put rocks in here to hold these in. This was cut off in a triangle shape, but lots of fibrous new roots in there. Multiple layers thick. Got to step back and take a look. Not too bad. I like that. I like how these two sit here. This one kind of comes out here. It's got some movement. It's got the more leaves. It's shorter and stock here. The tall, skinny ones in the back. And we'll just cut off this branch right here on the birch tree. The only other thing I consider is if I put the shortest one in the back and put the two tall ones in front, and that short one will stay short and bushy with the shade from the birch trees. ended up leaving this root in over here. It'll grow down into there, and we'll see if we keep it in the forest in the future. But for right now, I just want all roots to be in there as much as possible to make sure this late spring repot is not going to be too damaging to the tree. We will be a little cool tonight, so I might put a blanket around the bottom here to protect these roots. But we shouldn't get below 40. Let's step back and take a look at this. There we go. We have a white paper birch forest with a couple of maples that flew in and tried to grow next to it, and they're young, immature, but growing taller. And in a couple of years, maybe the whole thing will fill out real nice. We could have maple trees that are taller than the birch trees. We'll get more suckers from the birch growing and get this thing going. Everything looks like it's holding pretty good, so the last step is I'm going to put some sphagnum moss on top. So I'm going to get a little bit more finer sphagnum moss going. We'll put that on top, give it one more watering, and then eventually this sphagnum moss will turn really green if I keep it watered this year. Now, because it is on a slab, it's not in a pot, this will dry out really fast, and I have to make sure this is watered very, very regularly. We'll keep a close eye on it and tell all my friends and family when I'm gone that this is the gem. I got to make sure this one's watered for sure. Let's get some sphagnum moss. So my update for today is the garden beds. I was able to get the screening around those two in the back. We've got the climbing section for the climbing cucumbers and such. Strawberries and lettuces are on the front row. We need a cover for the top and I'm all done. But otherwise, nothing can get in there unless we get deer in the yard. But there are the garden beds, all complete. Well, there you have it. Super excited. We got the slab all planted. We got the birch forest cluster over to the right. We got a couple of maple trees to the left. And we got it all mucked in on the sides and some sphagnum moss on top. That sphagnum moss will keep the moisture inside the roots so they won't dry out so fast in the hot summer days. And yeah, we'll keep a close eye on this. Super fun project. I can't wait to see how it looks in a couple of years. Okay. We're going to let it be. Hey, take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you on the next one, everybody.